So, Saturday morning, we had a pretty gnarly windstorm come through last night. I have that little, I have a little weather station where it has the monitor that sits outside, and I have the little screen in my room. And we were getting winds upwards of 30 mile an hour, and for around here, that's pretty high. I think it maxed out at around 35 psi. I can check the high wind temperature or not, but whatever. This video isn't about my weather station. It's about I do not own a chainsaw. I've never thought about well, of course I've thought about it, but I've never decided to make the investment in it because, you know, I have crosscut saws. So anyway, what happened last night in this windstorm is this tree came down across the driveway. Now, it is a rather large tree, and I feel I'm definitely rather fortunate that it didn't click that fence right there. It's an ash tree, big old dead ash. You can see how it got uprooted. I'm kind of surprised that this thing just blew over like this because the ground is somewhat frozen right now. Normally trees only blow over when it's kind of like a soft ground from like a lot of rain or something, or you know, something along those lines. So here's the deal. I have no chainsaw, so I'm going to be doing this with traditional tools. About the size of my boot. I'm like a size 11 boot, I guess, depending where I want to saw through the trunk. I'll probably saw through right here because you can see that the trunk gets rather larger. Of course, it decreases in size. And most of that stuff I'll probably just leave there till the spring. But the important thing is for me to get my means of egress back, so I did bring the truck over, and let's see what traditional tools I have to work with today. I'm sure some of you have already seen. So I have just a traditional felling axe, 36-inch handle. I have a homemade pickaroon. I know somebody's probably going to complain that I don't have this head sharpened right. It's just a piece of rectangular stock. I filed down this handle to fit it in there, drove a rivet through there, but before I did any of that, I welded on a piece of rod. This was actually a bolt. You can still see the bolt threads there. And so yeah, I just welded it on there, bent it slightly on the tip. And with my pickaroons, I much prefer a flat ground tip like this. I don't like where it comes to a direct point. I like to have kind of like a flat surface. And the reason I like that is because if you drive into a log with just a single point, it has a tendency to roll or torque to either side because you don't have any stability. You're just poking it with kind of like a centrifugal point, and then if you don't hit that indirect center, then it does have a tendency to roll, as opposed to with a flat thin piece of metal that still drives in there and may take a little bit more force, which I think is also a positive. When you drive that flat piece of metal in there, it helps reduce the torque, or it counteracts the log's tendency to twist to either side. That kind of makes sense. It makes sense in my mind anyway. And that's the reason I grind that down like that. So whatever. Also, I have a log peavy, which this is something I've been wanting to make for a while. I ended up purchasing this at a yard sale. In fact, it still has the yard sale tag on there. I think I worked them down to $30, but I mean, I think these things generally go for upwards around $100. Maybe the cheaper one's a little bit cheaper, but this one's like brand new, never used. So figured that would definitely come in handy today. And this is just a felling saw. I'm not using my bucking saw today because I don't want to get it all dull. Well, it wouldn't get all dull, but this is just kind of like the saw that I used to beat around. I don't even use the real handles I have. I just use these homemade handles. So that's what we have to work with now. I'll set this tripod up and I'll get to work here. See if I can clear off some of this bark. Okay, so as you can see, axe has made it most of the way through there. Just have a little chunk left to do with the saw. I kind of wanted to break the saw out because I miss playing around with it. I'm sure we're going to have to use it on the other side, but I don't really have a ton of energy because I had a shitty breakfast because I don't really have a way to get out of the house. So let's get going with the saw here, see what we can do. There we go. One side done. Prop up my saw. I know you guys are always curious as to what the whiskers look like, because the whiskers will tell what the saw is cutting like. But that may not always be the case because there are certain factors that could also contribute to how the saw is cutting. Here's some of my whiskers. Kind of chunky. This wood, well, obviously it's winter, and this tree's dead, so it's kind of dry. And it's ash, so dry ash is kind of harder to cut through than like a soft summer pine. And also, the angle that I was cutting on, I was resting on a knee over there, so I wasn't able to utilize the saw to its full capacity in a one-man setting. So I have a feeling it's going to be even suckier on this other side. So not really sure how this is going to go, but I'll give it my best, and we'll go from there. Yeah, thinking about it now, I was originally thinking about going through the trunk over here because it's a little bit smaller in diameter, but I think I'm just going to go for that big chunk right there because it's suspended, which means it's higher up off the ground, so I don't have to lift this other chunk of log. And I think it's just going to be the easier route to go, unfortunately, which is going to be more work, but I'm up for the challenge. In my opinion, one of the common misconceptions of axes is an unexperienced woodsman sees an axe and he's like, all right, I need to swing this thing as hard and fast as I can. When in fact, that's not the case. If you do that, you're just going to wear yourself out and you're not going to be very effective. When it comes to axes, what's more important is accuracy and where you land them. And then, of course, power will come with time. So the idea is you want to come in on an angle from each side and you want to try and land in that same channel that you land your axe in on this angle. And ideally what's going to happen is you're just going to start pumping chunks out. Like if you take a look at this chunk right now, it's like a 1-inch size chunk. And if you look at it from that angle, you can kind of see the angle I was hitting with my axe. Well, it'd be more like this because I was coming in at this angle, but very effective tool. Now just taking a look at the progress we made. This is probably close to a 12-inch diameter log right here. And just from a couple minutes chipping away with this axe, you can see we made it clearly halfway through this beast already. And if I prefer, I could come back around to this side and I could start chipping away, and then by the time I chip away at this side, there should be pretty well next to nothing left. But I think I'm going to go back to the crosscut saw because I like playing around with that saw and I don't get to do it very often.
Alright, so she broke off in one big chunk now. And I got my log PV and I'm going to see what kind of magic I can work with this sucker on moving her over to the right. There is a knot right about here, so I'm not sure how much that's going to affect me, but let's see what this $30 PV can do. Alright, so this log PV, you can see that I was struggling around with it a little bit. It's not really designed for anything larger than 12 inches in diameter. This is probably a 10-inch log right now. And it can't really hook like the jaw is designed for larger logs. I know I could fix this if I just bend this section in a little bit more. But then you lose some of your capacity on your larger logs. So, then again, you know, the handle isn't super high, so on those larger logs, it's not like you have a ton of leverage. You have enough to roll them if there's no knots or anything, so kind of hard to determine whether I want to keep it this way or if I want to modify it. I was just checking out this tooth right here, and this tooth is, it's not like it's dull, but, you know, I probably could sharpen them up, pull these tips up a little bit, and that probably would help a little bit, so. What also would probably help is if I installed a second tooth, just welded a second tip right on there. Would probably help out some, so I don't know. So it's like you gotta set that tooth or something. Because it just wants to spin off. Yeah, we gotta do some modifying to this. I got nothing. That worked fine. So that, ladies and gentlemen, is how you clear a tree out of your driveway without using any modern technology. It's something really fun to do. You pretty much saw in this video that if I wanted to, I could have just nailed through this with the axe. But I kind of like taking the crosscut saw out. It's something really fun if you've never experienced before. And it's something that anyone could really get into. You know, when I first got into it, purchased my first set of saws on eBay. I definitely overpaid for them, but if you guys look around at yard sales and whatnot, you can find them. And the only other thing that you really need in order to get going is after you find a decent saw, it doesn't matter if it's a little rusty, just try to make sure that all the teeth are there. You're going to need a crosscut saw filing tool, and they're on eBay all the time. When I first bought mine, I think I paid around $100 for it, but it came in the box. It had the original instructions. It did have a spider gauge, which you'll learn about if you do a little bit of research on them. And I paid like $100 for mine, but on eBay right now, they're all over the place. You could buy a multi-tool for around $30, and if you're curious on how to sharpen these, if you go back through my videos and you look up Crosscut Saw Restoration, I believe is the title, you can learn all about these. And again, you know, like today, we're at a tree down across the driveway. I don't have a chainsaw. I don't really have a desire to own a chainsaw, unless I decide to build a log cabin in the future or something. This will get me by for anything I really need. I mean, if I really needed to, I could cut a 36-inch in diameter tree. Granted, it'd take me probably all day just to get through it, but you could absolutely do that. And, you know, it's a great investment. It's a simple crosscut saw, 36-inch felling axe. You don't have to have a PV, but as you can see in situations like today where I have a large log that I need to move across the main path, you know, it's a great tool. Definitely recommend looking around at yard sales again. Yard sales, you can find pretty much all this stuff. And pretty much concludes this video. Thanks for watching. If you like this video, I'd appreciate a thumbs up. Helps support the channel. And you can also check out in the description below, I'll list a couple products. Crosscut saws and a felling axe and a log PV if you're interested in just purchasing your own tools. Don't really feel like waiting. I don't blame you. When you get into something, you know, you want it now. Yeah, I'll just leave those links in the description below. But thanks for watching.